Welcome back, Gadgeteers. Today I thought we'd talk a little bit more about Fedora 31, and what I'd like to do is actually upgrade my Lenovo ThinkPad P1. So this laptop, I'm a little less concerned if I do the upgrade to Fedora 31 than I am if I do the upgrade on my main system. So I want to point out I'm going to try not to use the command line, but before I get started, I'm going to pull the command line up real quick, and I just wanted to show you, we'll do a uname-r real quick, that I'm currently on Fedora 29. So my sincerest hope is that I will be allowed to do this upgrade with the graphical interface. I have done this with the command line before and it's worked fine, so I can't imagine it would be an issue. Now, according to the documentation from Fedora magazine, and let me make this a little larger so you can see it okay. It says that soon after release time, and it's been quite a while now, a notification appears to tell you your upgrade is available. Or you can choose software from the GNOME shell. Now, I'm actually in the KDE shell or desktop environment, so we'll see what happens, but I can choose software, so technically it should work. We'll go ahead and go into the Updates tab, and we're going to see if it gives us an upgrade to Fedora 31. So let's do that now. I'm going to click the little F for Fedora, and I will do a search for software. I'm pretty sure it's this tool here. And it usually takes just a little bit for it to fill in the information. Hopefully not too long. I'm going to click Updates and see what happens. So Fedora 29 is no longer supported, and it does not receive security updates. So it's a good reason to do an upgrade. Although if I did do a DNF and list the number of updates available, there still would be a ton. So I'm a little bit skeptical about that. Okay, so after quite a bit of waiting, this screen came up telling me that Fedora 31 is indeed available, and I definitely want the latest features. There is some device firmware that can be updated. I'm going to hold off on this for right now and just do the download and the preparation for updating. So allegedly it says when I hit download, what it used to do back in the bad old days is it would do the download and it would restart the computer right away. Well, this is supposed to do the download, and then when I'm ready, I can go ahead and reboot the computer. So my plan is to switch to my Sony AX53, and we can see what the update looks like while the computer is in the process of rebooting and then doing the update. So right now all it's doing is downloading. I'm going to click Learn More. Refreshed background chooser if you're on GNOME, which I'm not. Custom application folders in GNOME, which is very nice, and we demonstrated that in our first Fedora 31 video that we did just about, a month ago. So if you haven't caught that one, you might want to check it out. The first thing I always do is do a Fedora 31 or whichever is the newest version of Fedora update using a virtual machine so that I can test all the characteristics of the new OS and make sure it can simply do an installation. If it's not able to do an install on a virtual machine, that indicates to me that there could be a bigger problem, and it might be a good idea to just hold off and see what happens. All right, let's go back to what's new in Fedora. And that is about it. You can look at the release notes. Remember, on that previous video that you might want to check out, Fedora 31, ready for prime time, we have a long conversation about what the updates are in the errata, and we also look at the documentation and go much more in depth to the changes that they've made. So it looks like downloading is going to take a while. So I'm going to pause, and when we get done, we're going to go ahead and do a reboot, and we'll see what happens. All right. We are back. I've got the Sony Handycam out. What I'm going to do is go ahead and do the installation. Now, you may notice that it does recommend right there in the middle, it is recommended that you back up your data. So I agree with that. I'm a little bit cavalier about it because on this particular system, I have nothing that I need to worry about. So I'm going to click install and see what it does. And it wants the root password, so I'm going to put that in. I've now entered it twice. I'm going to take a wild guess and assume I need to reboot. Honestly, don't know. Let's try a reboot and see what happens. Reboot. Reboot. Now the text is incredibly small on this screen because it is 4K when it's in text mode only. So I'll do my best to get the... Let's see what it says here. I'm going to zoom in so that I can look at the screen as well. See if we can get it to focus. Nope. So usually it has like, it says Fedora upgrade, and it has the new kernel and all that good stuff. So let's go back in, and I'm going to log it in, and then we'll see what happens. Okay, well, after doing a reboot and then selecting the kernel that I wanted to boot into, it began doing the system upgrade, and it's already at 26%. So I think it's going to take a little while, but awesome. From the GUI, just clicked upgrade. It was downloaded, and now hopefully after a reboot, I will get access to my laptop back. Okay. So we have successfully rebooted, and now you can see there's a new menu option that says Fedora 5.3.16-300, and you can see the FC31. So all that information is the kernel that's been installed, and then in parentheses behind it, it says 31. So I'm going to try to do this without moving the camera too much. I'm going to go ahead and press enter. And we're going to try and do the reboot and see what happens. You can see how far I had to zoom out because, or excuse me, zoom in because that text was so tiny. Now what I've done is I have set the screen for 1920 by 1080p. Usually I have it set in 4K, but when I'm capturing videos, it's just better to capture it in 4K. So I have made that change. I just think it basically works the processor a little less hard. Okay, here we go. We're going to put the password in. All right, so we are logged in. Everything essentially looks the same. And of course, I'm on KDE, so hopefully everything's working okay. One thing so far that I found somewhat difficult was the fact that once you download the updater, Fedora 31 updater, and all the install files, and then you click install, there's no message that comes back that says that it's ready to install. So I just kind of guessed and rebooted. So I guess I'll have to live with that. All right, so let's see if we can get OBS Studio running. Test, 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 test. I don't know if you can see that. Let's do cam large. And there I am with my handy cam. We can do cam full. So far so good. I think I'm going to switch to OBS Studio for the rest of this particular segment, and we'll see how it goes. All right, so we've ascertained that OBS Studio is working okay. Now, even on Fedora 30, I did get an update to Kdenlive Video Editor, and I hate it. They've made some critical changes. Basically, if you add a video, it now mandatorily splits the video from the audio. So if you have a complicated editing setup and you have many clips in here, you can actually get to the point where if you try to grab a clip and bring it down and drop it into the timeline, it won't let you because it needs to separate the audio track. But on both of these, depending on how complicated and how many video tracks and so on you have, it actually can't do that. So I'm going to load my, let's see. We're going to start with something relatively simple. Let's load the template and hope it works. So that's no big deal. It's telling me that Noto Sans font is gone and will be replaced with Deja Vu Sans. I'm good with that. So now what it's done is we have the title clip, and down here, this is crazy. I don't know what it's doing. Yeah, this actually makes sense. So there's the Fast Gadgets open, and there is the Fast Gadgets open sound. And there's no way to merge them together. For me, most of the time, I do not need to split my audio, so I'm not 100% sure why they decided to go with that. According to the documentation I've read, they think that editing-wise, that it's more in keeping with what's standard. And of course, I can't answer that question because I don't use other editors enough, but all the editors that I've used do not split the clips, audio, and video to my knowledge. So the other thing that was really strange is here in effects, tons of them are missing now. And keep in mind, I haven't really had a chance to do everything I want to do. So transform was a big one, and you can see we've got an error there. I'm not sure what's going on with that. There's just a ton of effects missing. Let's see if we can do transform again. That's strange. So they've got alpha transform, and you click it, and then down here you click transform, and then there's a visual error. I'll try to stretch it. Maybe that'll help. Doesn't look like it, but it looks like there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, and I don't know what these are. I wish I could tell. Let's drop it down here and see what it does. Guess we have to do it on a clip, don't we? We'll use this one. Pop it in. Can I add effect fade? I don't need a fade effect. Oh boy. The other thing is the text is huge. And again, I'm not sure why that is. I don't have the text set up to be that large in the rest of, as you can see here on the icon, for example, in the rest of KDE, so that's really strange. Basically what it means for me using the editor now the way it is, I can still use it, but some of the really cool effects that I was doing in Transform are just gone. All right, well anyway, that's only one application, so let's go ahead and close it, and no, we're not going to do any changes. Now some people might say, yeah, you could go back to the previous edition, get the flat pack or whatever, and yeah, I could, but this is the way it's going to be, and I feel like I kind of owe it to myself to figure it out and learn how to do it. Because at some point I'm going to have to do it. Let's see. I do use VirtualBox from time to time. There is my Fedora 31 virtual machine. I want to try to start it. I guess that'll be the key. Haha, nope. Not even. The VirtualBox Linux kernel driver VBox DRV is probably not loaded, blah, blah, blah. The funny thing about this is it always tells you to do the same thing. It usually works 60 to 70% of the time, so that right there might work without having to do this, because this stuff should be installed. Well, maybe not. Let's copy it and go to the evil command line. And this is what I was saying in my 5 reasons Fedora Linux will never control the desktop market. This is a prime example. So we have this problem. What do we got to do? Go directly to the terminal and start typing in terminal commands. Here's the problem I have with it. This is the big thing for me. Let's paste that command in and run it, see if it'll work. Of course not. What did you think was going to happen, Mark? Okay, as soon as we get this command running, sure, go get him. Oh, geez, I lost my train of thought now. I hate when I do that. Okay, well, we'll close that. So the big problem is the minute you go to run an application and something fails, you have to do commands. It's the only way to get things working again. And now I remember what I was going to say. This particular problem has actually been a problem since, I don't know, VirtualBox 3. And here we skip 3 packages because they have conflicts and nothing to do. So it can become an endless chore to get things working. So let's add -- best and -- allow erasing. Now this has worked for me about 30% of the time, the -- best and -- allow erasing. So we're going to try again. They should already be ready and downloaded. We'll say yes to the GPG key, and it is going to go ahead and do the installation. So this problem's been around with VirtualBox a long time. Now there's a couple of variables here. One, you can't necessarily install something that the user hasn't asked for, if that makes sense. I guess when you run VirtualBox and you get this error, it could ask if you want the system to do these things, and then it'll go ahead and do them, and hopefully it will run after that. Now unfortunately I don't believe it's going to run, but we'll try. Building and installing ACPI kmod. Building RPMs failed. Some kmods were ignored or failed to build or install. You can try to rebuild and install them by calling. Why not? What's the worst that could happen? So I will copy this, and where is my paste key? I get used to keyboards, and then when I switch to another keyboard, it's like, oh. Alright. So it failed, but so, you know what? I wonder if I needed to close this first. Let's close it. And we'll say OK to that. And I guess I could do an up arrow now and enter. Still no. My expectation is that it will not run. It probably needs a reboot. Start. I'll be shocked if it runs. Well, it's certainly working. I wonder if I can just shut down from right here. It looks like it, so I'm going to go ahead and power it off. And we'll minimize that. That should go away when it's done. We got two things working despite the Kmod update that we needed to do on the ACPI. So I will go ahead and close the terminal. I'm just curious if RhythmBox is still working. About to find out. Now, of course, we can't hear it because I have my microphone plugged in, but everything looks good. I still, on my desktop, I'm going to do a video about RhythmBox because I absolutely love it. And I've got probably a terabyte of music that I really want to load into RhythmBox. So let's see if I can close that. Okay. What else do we got? Well, we know the terminal's working. Sounds trivial until you really need it and it won't work. I'm thinking system monitor will be fine. Text editor. Yep, I didn't really expect a problem from that. Image editor, let's check out GNU. I do use GNU GIMP or GNU Image Manipulation Program, GIMP, quite a bit. Let us open a recent. Just make sure it opens okay. Yep. So I'm set at 1920 by 1080. There's definitely more room when I have it set at 4K. Of course, what does that mean? Well, all these icons and everything else is a lot smaller. So if I'm able to see everything like I am right now, why even go back to 4K? Well, the reason is it is much, much more sharper of an image. If you get your nose closer to the screen and you look at it, you can tell that everything is slightly less sharp. And you say, well, that's silly, you can't really tell. You can actually tell more than you would think. And for right now anyway, I'm going to stick with 1080p, but at some point I probably will go back to 4K because I really like it. Let's try to run Libre. Let's go into Libre Calc. I actually leave those tips on. It seems to help me out. I'm not going to worry about what's new right now. There is one particular sheet I like to open. Let's see. Yeah, I think it's this one. Yeah, this is probably my most important spreadsheet that I have. Ooh, I didn't want that. Basically, each of these tabs gives information about performance on the different systems that I work with. And I just wanted to make sure that everything was kosher because I'll be using it again. And I'm actually going to add another tab to the information, which will be a handbrake render. So I can do that in Windows, Linux, and Mac, and therefore I can test the hardware, but not just the hardware, I can test software as well, the OS to be specific. So LibreOffice seems to be working okay. Let's look and see what other applications we have. What do we got in administration? Firewall config. Usually I don't need that. I currently am not using the NVIDIA driver, so I actually don't need that. We'll go back to all apps. Check out development. I don't have much in development, so I am not a programmer, and for me it's complex. So I must have left Left 4 Dead 2 on here, which runs really well. Witcher 2 not so well, and honestly I didn't think I got Witcher 3 running on here at all, so I'm going to have to do another video and we're going to try and see if Witcher 3 is working. Witcher 3 of course is not a Linux game, so I must have been using Proton to get that working. That's a part of Steam. And I don't need to scan documents. This is a basic drawing program. Browse and rotate images. Some of the things in here I didn't even know were here. Internet. I have a BitTorrent client that I use from time to time. There's the Conqueror web browser. I'm really not a big fan of the Conqueror web browser. What I usually do is use Firefox, and then when necessary, if something's not working, I go to Chromium. And from time to time I'll use Chromium. Otherwise, no. And I don't really use a mail client anymore. I don't know many people that do. The problem I have with mail clients these days is you go through the huge process of, well, okay, it's not huge, but the process of setting it up, and you get all of your mail coming into this client, and unlike Windows where it's supposed to remember the settings, so if you use their mail client and your computer crashes, when it comes back, the mail client should have all of the settings because you're going to use your specific login, which is no longer just a local desktop login, but a cloud login. So if you set all this stuff up, you're going to have to set it up again if there's a problem. And there's some tools that you lose, like spam detection and things like that. So I'm not a big fan of email clients unless they are right on the service that you're using. One more quick look at internet. Feed reader, I was using that. I think I'm using it on my desktop, but let's just check, see if I got any. No, I don't. So I'm reading feeds on my desktop, which I do like. Let's go back to applications, multimedia. You can still burn disks. This computer doesn't have a disk drive, so I'd have to get one, but I could burn an image file of a disk. GovCView I use quite often to set up my onboard camera. Especially if you have a nicer camera, you can tweak the settings far beyond what OBS can do, and then when you close GovCView and you go into OBS, it retains all those settings. Everybody's got VLC, Rhythmbox, Pulse Audio, Sound Editor by Audacity. Let's just launch it and make sure it'll launch. So we have the new version of that, and I just want to open no audio files that are recent. So let's go to music and new tires. Yep. All right. I am not going to save this project. What else we got in multimedia? Anything? Well, you can play movies or you can use VLC. Sometimes I get, issues using the videos app that's built in, so I just go ahead and use VLC Media Player. Automatic mouse click tool. I don't know about that. If anybody's used this, let me know and tell me what you think. Different clocks, character selector, manage drives and media, which I believe is the GNOME application, and find files and folders, which is a nice tool. All right, so quite a lot of stuff there. Everything seems fully functional. Most important thing I use, file manager. And it starts me out on home. Let's go down. And I see my newer 1 terabyte SSD Windows. And then, of course, this one. Basically what I did is I separated. I've got 2 partitions, one for Windows, one for Linux, and then I have the 970 SSD formatted as NTFS. So that way I can get access to it whether I'm in Windows or Linux. Everything seems to be working well. I really didn't expect anything less. My experience with Linux, well, Fedora upgrades in particular, has been really well. I'm going to go ahead and launch the web browser. I don't remember if we did that or not. All right, everything seems to be okay. So that's Fedora 31 installation. If there's something else you would like to see about Fedora 31, let me know. I'll be happy to look into making a new video about it, and we'll go from there. So let me know what you would like to see. As always, thank you for watching. I appreciate the views. I appreciate the support you've given me lately. I do mean to do an update. I just haven't gotten around to it. So thank you for watching. See you next time. This video was made possible with support from viewers like you. If you find this video useful, consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/fastgadgets.